Hollywood leftists try to kill Christmas and fail.
Mr. Reagan.
Seth Rogen is a little bitter because literally everyone hates his new radical feminist HBO series. This series is an animated show about Christmas, and it's called Santa Inc. But here's the thing. This project deserves to be hated. Seth Rogen, I mean, he's an odd guy to say the least. He's Jewish, and over the years, he's really become openly bigoted against Christians. I mean, he is a straight-up bigot, and he has created here an HBO series that is bigoted against Christian. It denigrates Christmas. So, of course, people hate it. Now, I don't ordinarily talk about bigotry coming from Jewish people aimed at Christians. I don't tend to see that very often in the media, and the only Jewish people that I know are great people. Well, all except for one guy. There's one guy that I know. He's an absolute left-wing guy who grew up in Berkeley, California. He's in his 30s, no job, no girlfriend, lives with his parents, and he thinks the government should pay for his every whim. I mean, this guy has basically always been, since I've known him, a perfect example of a delusional young socialist, completely out of touch with reality. And this guy once said to me something that really shocked me. He said that he hates Christmas. Now, I didn't think that was possible. Black, white, Christian, Jewish. How could any American hate Christmas? It just didn't make any sense to me. And I've known Jewish people who really enjoy the Christmas season. They tend to celebrate Hanukkah, obviously, but they go to Christmas parties. They enjoy the spirit of the season. They enjoy the decorations. They enjoy the music. They enjoy all of it. But not this guy. This one guy, and I know I won't say his name, but he is Jewish, and he hates Christmas. And so, of course, I asked him why. And I think his answer shed some light on why Seth Rogen would make such a hateful anti-Christmas Christmas show. And I'll reveal that answer in one moment, but first, I have to tell you something. It's being reported that the top 5 tech corporations are lobbying hard against consumer privacy. These corporations include Facebook, Apple, Microsoft, and Google. Google, for example, boasted about delaying e-privacy regulations, and they are said to be colluding with Facebook. Amazon has also successfully lobbied against 36 privacy protection bills across 25 states. Now, I do everything in my power to ensure my privacy online, and that means I always keep on my VPN. Well, that's what the script tells me to say, but the truth is that sometimes I forget. And when I realize I don't have it on, I'm like, crap. Now, my buddy just got a knock on the door from the FBI a few months back for being at the Capitol on January 6th, despite being a reporter. And that has made me a little bit paranoid ever since. Now, a VPN allows you to surf the web anonymously, which means that you'll prevent advertisers and corporations from creating profiles on you. I use Virtual Shield's VPN. Virtual Shield has been built from the ground up for your protection. Now, I think it's the fastest, the most reliable, and the easiest VPN to use, and it is secure. It's also available on your iPhone and for your Android devices. Now, I've partnered with Virtual Shield to give my audience 50% off for life and a free 30-day trial of Virtual Shield during the holidays. So go to virtualshield.com/Mr. Reagan or click on the link in the description below to start protecting yourself online right now. All right, so why does this one Jewish friend of mine hate Christmas so much? Well, as a Jewish kid, my friend used to see all the other kids in America enjoying Christmas, something that his family didn't do. And he envied everyone. He was jealous. That's it. He was jealous. Simple as that. He hated Christmas because he wasn't allowed to participate in it. He felt left out. In particular, he hated Christmas trees. Yeah, kind of a weirdly specific thing, but he hated Christmas trees. And to this day, he hates Christmas trees. I guess as a kid, he saw kids chopping down Christmas trees with their dads, decorating that tree, opening the presents around the tree. So he hated the Christmas tree. He saw this on TV shows, in movies, and even in commercials. He felt left out.
The Griswold family Christmas tree.
Dad, did you bring a saw?
Sure, he had Hanukkah, but according to him, Hanukkah was kind of lame. He enjoyed some of the other Jewish holidays a lot more, but he never really liked Hanukkah. And in part, I guess, it's because Hanukkah pales in comparison to the magic of Christmas. And again, this is just this one guy's perception. I don't think that probably most Jews feel this way, but that was certainly how he felt. So in short, my friend hated Christmas precisely because it is so wonderful. And I think Seth Rogen might suffer from the same resentment. And so, of course, he wants to ruin it for the rest of us. Because certainly for practicing Christians, Christmas is a celebration of the birth of Christ. It's a time that we Christians spend reflecting on the gift God gave to the world, the gift of his son, Jesus Christ, and Christmas is a way for us to show our gratitude for that gift. Christ means many things to Christians. He's a symbol of redemption, but he's more than a symbol, though. Christ is the path to salvation in the Christian religion. He's the Son of God and part of the Holy Trinity. To a non-Christian who may not fully understand the role Christ plays in the Christian faith, a simple way to explain Christ is just to say Christ is the embodiment of all that is good. Pretty simple, really. And so on Christmas, even those who are maybe not the best Christians for the rest of the year, try a little bit harder around Christmas time. And you're always going to have the Ebenezer Scrooge types that humbug Christmas, those who are put off by the spirit of the holiday or dread seeing their families or get stressed out by trying to get everything just right. You'll get folks like that. But for the most part, most people, I think, get a lot of joy from Christmas. I tend to find that cashiers and other service job folks, they tend to be a little nicer around Christmas. I find that most people get rather excited to go home to see their family, and kids especially are all thoroughly excited to see what's going to be waiting for them under the Christmas tree. And that spirit of Christmas is infectious. So even if you don't believe in Christ or care anything about the Christmas story, the traditions of Christmas can be observed. The first recorded instance of a Christmas tree is from 1539 by the Protestant Germans in Strasbourg, Alsace, France. And this is, incidentally, very near the region where my ancestors are from, which I think is kind of cool. But I digress. The point here is that Christmas is meant to be a time of great joy, a time of giving, a time of gratitude, and a time of goodness. It's a time to focus on the good in the world and to take our minds off the bad. And so it can only be the worst kind of human being who would want to ruin that for the rest of us. And yet, someone in Hollywood has given it their best shot. All right, now let me explain the show a little bit. The show's premise basically copies the Tim Allen Santa Claus movie idea, where every once in a while Santa retires and a new Santa is appointed. And in this version, Santa Inc., in this iteration, a female elf wants Santa's job, which is absurd because Santa is an old white guy.
But the position of Santa has mostly been a white man's game.
Exactly, it's crazy. Things have got to change.
And so the whole thing turns into this cringe-inducing metaphor about women and ethnic minorities being hired to positions of power because, they're always better at everything than men or white people ever were. But it's not just the overtly political messaging that makes this show so awful. It's the rampant vulgarity, which is just a really weak attempt at shock humor. Now, I generally find shock humor to be lazy. It's just such an easy kind of joke. You just make a child or a seemingly sweet old lady or an apparently proper young woman, you make them swear a lot or say overtly sexual things, and that kind of thing can be funny. But that sort of joke has been so overplayed in the past decade that at this point, it's worse than lazy. It's cliche. Now, the truth is, whether you like it or not, you can get away with a lot if you're funny. You can make fun of Christmas if you're funny. You can even make fun of Christians and God and whatever, and people will probably like your movie if you're funny. So honestly, the biggest problem with this animated show might just be that it's not funny. Reading through the comments on Rotten Tomatoes, even people who like shock comedy did not like this show. So apparently not only was the shock comedy lazy and cliche, it was also bad even if you like shock comedy. It's a crap comedy with a crap idea. It's anti-Christian, it's anti-Christmas, and it's also woke. Now, I haven't seen this show. I've just seen the trailer, but let's have a look at the Rotten Tomato audience rating for this show, and 4%. Well, that's worse than I could have ever imagined. The like-dislike ratio on YouTube is even more abysmal. 4,400 likes to 187,000 dislikes. Nobody likes this thing. It's so abysmal, in fact, that YouTube has hidden the dislikes. You need a special browser workaround extension to even see them. And they've also turned off the comments so you can't comment on it. News articles have claimed that this is all the fault of white supremacists who hate the movie because, they're evil bigots. Sure, that's the problem. Less than 5% of the audience on basically every possible site like this thing, sites that rate these things, less than 5% of the audience likes any aspect of this show. But it's all because of white supremacist trolls. Yeah, I don't think so. Now, for the record, let me just say that I am not a white supremacist, and I find this idiotic show revolting. So there's at least one vote, one dislike for this show from somebody who's not a white supremacist, all right? I mean, how can you not expect this kind of reaction from the public? If you make an anti-Christmas show, you've got to expect that people are going to hate it. Christmas is by far the most beloved holiday in America. It's kind of like if you walked into somebody's house, right, and you picked up an urn with their grandma's ashes in it, and you say, "Is this an urn with your grandma's ashes in it?" And they go, yeah, it is. And you proceed to smash the urn on the ground, stomp on it, and then pee on it. I don't think that people are going to like you. I don't think people are going to think that's a funny joke. They're going to ask you to get the F out of their house, and they might even shoot you. Desecrating the things that other people find sacred, that's not funny. That's like not a good joke that's going to endear people to your project. It's stupid, it's bad business, and it's not funny. I'm not sure if they could have made a less likable project if they were trying to make an unlikable project. And obviously they did want a negative response by conservatives. I think that was partly the point of making the show so hateful against Christmas and so repugnant generally. And I get that negative press can get you a lot of free publicity and can, in the end, get more people watching your project. But I think that in this case, that strategy did not work. Everybody loves Christmas. By making a Christmas-hating Christmas show, you're going to repel people. You're going to repel literally everyone. And just so you have some idea of exactly how awful this show actually is, let's have a look at some clips from the trailer.
Let's get these kids some presents. Bravo! More American kids believe in you than they do in vaccines or the Holocaust.
That's great.
The position of Santa has mostly been a white man's game.
Exactly, it's crazy. Things have got to change.
Santa and the board are all male and all white. They play golf, drink, smoke cigars, say things like, "Don't ever marry your mistress."
Now, Seth Rogen has acknowledged that this was a woke feminist project.
You want to sit on the couch and watch the fire roar?
No, I would rather watch an R-rated animated Christmas comedy with a touch of a feminist agenda.
So it's not like I'm misinterpreting this show or reading into stuff that isn't there. This is what the show was intended to be, and that is exactly how it's being perceived. And as the saying goes, get woke, go broke. And it appears that this is precisely what is happening here. Now, the truth is, I think that this show was just one massive effort to troll conservatives. It's anti-Christian, anti-Christmas, full of profanity, sexual jokes, gross-out humor, shock humor, blasphemy, and it is jam-packed full of woke feminism. What's not to love? Now, not only did they make this project woke, they made it obviously woke. It's as if, in the planning stages, they said, conservatives don't like woke crap, so let's make a Christmas-themed show full of woke crap. That'll show those Trump-supporting conservative Republican creeps. Ha! I mean, that's what this feels like. It feels like a big F you to conservatives. It feels like a big F you to anyone with traditional American values. And that just doesn't seem like the most lucrative strategy for writing a TV script. I also think that the purple elf is supposed to be Jewish. At least that's how a lot of people seem to be perceiving her. Now, I don't think Santa's elves were ever supposed to be Jewish traditionally. I don't think that was ever a thing. I never heard of that before. But, maybe that's another paranoid theory of some people who see anti-Semitism everywhere. I don't know. But as far as I know, that was never a thing. At least not until this dumpster fire of a TV show made it a thing. And, if this is true, if this elf is supposed to be Jewish, then they want the Christian Saint Nicholas replaced by a female Jewish elf. And this makes total sense when you consider that Seth Rogen is Jewish, and he seems to hate everything to do with Christianity, including religious Christians and Christmas. And as I said before, even people who like shock humor don't like this show, and so it's not just the bigotry and the vileness, it's also the poor quality of the writing. And as I said, I haven't seen this show, but Gary at Nerdrotic did, and according to him,
it is the worst I have ever seen. And one of the main reasons is the titular character, Candy Smalls, is just utterly unlikable.
Now, if you want to see more about this show, more about the details of the actual series, I highly recommend watching the Nerdrotic breakdown on his YouTube channel. It's a great channel, Nerdrotic. Check it out. The Critical Drinker also made a great video about this, and basically every pop culture YouTuber has chimed in on this. I mean, this thing has just pissed off everybody. So the show is garbage, and it's being perceived as garbage, and it's being rated as garbage by everyone on every website imaginable. Makes sense. But the show is also gaining attention for Seth Rogen's response to the public's reaction to the show. Rogan has, rather predictably, called everyone who doesn't like the show bigoted. Of course. Seth Rogen posted this to Twitter. He said, "We really pissed off tens of thousands of white supremacists with our new show, Santa Inc., which is now available on HBO Max. Please read the responses to this tweet for confirmation." So he thinks that the tens of thousands of people who were pissed off about this show were all white supremacists. The lack of self-awareness here is mind-blowing. This is a Jewish guy making a show that ridicules and demeans the sacred holiday of another religion, clearly not in the spirit of good fun, but in a spirit of obvious hatred, and he thinks that anyone criticizing that bigotry is a white supremacist. I mean, I want to say that this is unbelievable, but given the current state of leftists in America and in Hollywood specifically, this is actually very believable. Sad, but true. Now, at the end there, he wrote, "Please read the responses to this tweet for confirmation." So I guess he expects a lot of white supremacist comments in the response to that tweet. So I read through the comments, a lot of them, and I couldn't find any. I found a lot of people saying, "Your show sucks, dude." And I saw a lot of people basically rolling their eyes at the white supremacy excuse for the show's failure. And I saw quite a few black people that were pissed off because apparently the reindeer were all tired black stereotypes. But I didn't see any white supremacist comments. So Seth Rogen, I mean, he kind of set himself up to look like a moron. And for those of you who are watching this and you're big Seth Rogen fans and you say, you know, well, Seth Rogen, he made this one show and he was trying to be provocative and the jokes weren't funny, but that doesn't make him a bigot. Yeah, you know what? To those people, I say this. Actually, this is not the first time that Seth Rogen has done something like this. In fact, Seth Rogen has been on a kind of hateful anti-Christian binge for quite a while now. I remember when he made another anti-Christmas movie called The Night Before. And again, this is supposed to be, you know, a Christmas movie, but it revolved around magic mushrooms, cocaine, marijuana, and sexting.
Oh, don't you dare throw up in here. Swallow it like a girl would.
I need a barf bag.
No barf bag. Is it still happening?
It's still happening a little.
We did not kill Jesus! We did not do that!
Now, when I saw this, I remember thinking, what the hell is he talking about? So I asked some of my Jewish friends about this, and apparently this is a thing that some Jewish people think about Christians. There's this idea that Christians are bigoted against Jews because we think that the Jews killed Christ. But Christ was Jewish. He was a Jew living in Jewish society. Certainly some Jews arranged for and called for the crucifixion of Christ. But that's like saying because a Swedish man was falsely imprisoned in Sweden, all Swedes are bad. No one would think that. And in any case, it's made quite clear in the Bible that Christ sacrificed himself voluntarily in order to absolve all men of sin. So, although the society in which Christ lived and was ultimately crucified was Jewish, no one I've ever met has ever blamed, quote, the Jews for his death. It's a bizarre paranoia of some Jewish people who, I think, want to believe Christians are bigoted against them, much like black activists convince themselves that all white people are racist against them. It's the value of victimhood that we have created in this society. Later, Seth Rogen helped create and write a show called Preacher. This show depicts Jesus having intercourse, and there are other blasphemies, and it suggests that Jesus bore a son and is merely a random guy and not the Son of God. Oh, and Jesus in this show eventually turns against God. The point is that this vomit-inducing new anti-Christmas Christmas show isn't just an anomaly for Seth Rogen. Bashing Christianity and Christmas in particular has really become a trend with this guy. And this brings me back to my Jewish friend from Berkeley. Just as my friend resented Christmas because he felt left out from it, perhaps so too does Seth Rogen. Perhaps that's why this guy is constantly bashing Christians and Christmas. Perhaps he resents not being a Christian in a traditionally Christian society. And to that I say, okay, well then you know what? Move. You don't have to live here, Seth. If you hate Christianity so much, you can always move to an atheist nation like China. And though you don't even really seem to be a practicing Jew, if you really prefer Judaism, you could always move to Israel. I get that America is a great country and all that, and this may be too painful for you to hear, but a lot of the success of America is due to its historically Christian population. So if you like it here so much, you might want to come to terms with that. Instead of hating Christians, maybe show a little gratitude. But the reason I think that this whole topic is more important than just this one Hollywood project and Seth Rogen's bigotry is that there just seems to be this pattern in America now of bigotry against Christians. I often talk about the bigotry that exists against white people, and that's, probably a more significant issue at this moment. But the bigotry against Christians is also a problem, and I think it's really overlooked. A lot of people on CNN, a lot of leftists will often tweet things like, conservatives always talk about a war on Christmas. There's no war on Christmas. There is a war on Christmas, and there's a war on Christianity. And I think that the reason that this kind of bigotry is allowed to proliferate so much in America is that I think that our society is really afraid to call this stuff out. Or maybe not afraid, but there's just a lack of will to call it out. If there were a film or a TV show that ridiculed Judaism or Islam and just made blasphemous joke after blasphemous joke, denigrated either of those faiths, it would be utterly condemned in the media. CNN would probably have a panel discussion about how the film's bigoted, and the filmmakers, would be called out as evil and all this stuff. And that would probably all be true. And the panel discussion and all this criticism would probably all be justified. But nobody makes films like that. No one makes films or shows that denigrate Judaism or Islam or Buddhism or Hinduism or really any other religion. People just make films denigrating Christianity. That's it. It's a lot like racism that way. We're all taught in school, and most of us also by our parents, that hating ethnic minorities is bad. But no one is ever told that hating white people is bad. That's just not a thing in America. That's just not an ethic that we promote. And in the same way, we're all taught religious tolerance. There seems to be a level of tolerance that we're all expected to observe for every faith in America, except Christianity. Christianity gets to be distorted and slandered and ridiculed and denigrated ad nauseum without criticism or consequence. No one ever calls out religious intolerance against Christianity as bigoted, but that's exactly what it is. And those who make films and shows like this, they are bigots. And that's what Seth Rogen is. He's a bigot. He's an anti-Christian bigot. And people need to start saying these things out loud. Again, we're always telling kids not to be bigots in like 1,000 different ways. And it's time that this bigotry was condemned with the same fervor as any other kind of bigotry that has been condemned for the past 50 years. We need to teach this in schools. We need to teach this to our children. Bigotry against men is evil. Against white people is evil. And against Christians, it is evil. The one silver lining in all of this is that Rotten Tomatoes number, and also the like-dislike ratio on the trailer on YouTube, and also the many critical YouTube videos that have been created about this terrible animated show. It's clear that although the anti-Christian bigotry isn't being criticized as much as I would like to see, people are at least disgusted with this sort of thing, and I just love seeing that. Christmas is a sacred holiday for many Americans, even for non-believers. Everyone can get behind the joy of Christmas, the love and happiness that the season brings, and the goodness that the holiday stands for. Well, that's it for me, and whether you're a Christian, an atheist, a Jew, a Muslim, a Hindu, a Buddhist, I wish you all a very Merry Christmas. Good night.
Together, with God's help, we can and will resolve the problems which now confront us. And after all, why shouldn't we believe that? We are Americans. God bless you and thank you.